Hello. Well, I'm here. It's 13:54, so it's a little tiny bit early. So I'll just hang on and talk to you a little bit about what we're going to do. So I'm going to make some sweet peas. So here are my sweet peas. I've got various colours and I've got a few leaves. Now I'm going to just check to see what you can see if I hold these up. That's it. There we go. You can see all kinds of colours. You can see that I've got peachy colours, I've got yellow colours, I've got some purples, some cerise colours, and I've got little buds here, little pieces of just ones that are coming out now. So we'll do some full flowers and we'll do some little seed pod buds as well. So they'll be just about coming out. You'll notice I keep looking to my left. That's where I've got a picture of what I can actually see happening. So for whilst I'm doing this, it helps me to see what you can see. So in 5 minutes' time, we'll be picking up on some equipment that we perhaps need, although I've tried to keep it to a minimum. And so pretty much anybody with a few bits of basic equipment for flower making will be able to make these sweet peas. I've done a kit list, a picture of a kit list, so I'll put that up later, and so you'll be able to carry on with these once I've gone. I will adjust my camera in a little while, and with a bit of luck, you will all be able to follow what I'm going to do. So today I'm going to use the simplest possible things that I can get away with. So I'm going to use just basic cutters. There we go, basic cutters. And I'll show you in a minute where they all fit in. I think the easiest things I need to use are things like foam pads. It doesn't have to be a blue one, it can be a yellow one, it can be a white one, it can be any kind of a foam pad that you might have. I use just my green board. It doesn't matter whether you've got a green board or not. It could be a white board, it could be one like this. This is a cell cakes board. It's got grooves on the other side. That's a good one for making the leaves, or you might have one of these. That's equally as good. I'll put that one in there. Hello, Twiglet. Hello, I've got a person joined me called Twiglet. Hello, Twiglet. That's nice to see you. Now, I will adjust my camera in a minute, and because I don't think anybody really wants to look at me. So, as I said before, I'm going to just let you know what we're going to make, and I'll show you the flowers now. So here they are. This is what we're going to make. We're going to make the simplest flower. So I should show you how to make a sweet pea flower and a bud. So I'll show you how to make these little buds that are coming out, just coming open, and how to dust the colours. Some of these are solid colours, some of them are dusted colours. So we'll make a range, and then I'll show you how to make all these little squiggly bits and the leaves if there's time. So I'll just adjust my camera because I'm sure nobody really wants to look at me. And I will turn this round so that it focuses now on my board. So as you can see, I've marked my board. Oops, I'll try not to make you all feel very sick. And with a bit of luck, I should be able to get that focus just about right on there. Carefully within my lines. It's nearly there. There we go. You should have a good view now of what I can see. Thank you, Twiglet. Round of applause there. Okay. Now, I've got an array of equipment here. I've got some quarter width tape. I've got a number 1 cutter from a rose petal set. So that's the rose petal set that has 7 cutters in it. So that is one of the smaller cutters. I've got a cutter set from Sugarcraft Products, the Sweet Pea. So that's the 650 Sweet Pea from Sugarcraft Products. And I've got a ball tool, a palette knife, paintbrush for some glue, and a veining tool. I've also got a small star cutter, a tiny calyx cutter. So what we'll do is we'll start with some 24 gauge wires. They can be white or green, it doesn't matter. And all I'm going to do is to make a small hook in the end of them. Then I'm going to make a little pod with a pasty. So make like a little pasty on the end. Then, because these are white, I dust them into different colours. So I'll dust with green and Cornish cream, and in this instance I've put a nice dark African violet on there. Then I cut one of these, so that's your first shape for your first layer of petals, and I add the first layer of petals and dust again. Then I cut the second layer of petals and then add that and dust again with the green, the Cornish cream, and in this case the African violet. So that's what we'll be doing today. So if I move all that now, I'll get these out of the way, and we'll start with making the little pods that go in the very center of each of the flowers. Now every single sweet pea flower starts with one of these pods. So if I move all this out of the way, it'll be nice and easy to get started. So using a 24 gauge wire, I've cut a whole wire in half. So you've got one whole wire cut in half. So this is 2 wires here, which will make me 4 flowers. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take all 4 of them, level them up, and I've got a pliers that's got like a serrated inside, and that helps to hold all 4 wires together and turn it. So when they're turned over like that, I can then squeeze it. And I want these to be fairly flat. I don't want quite a round top to them. So I'm going to squash them fairly flat so that they stay flat inside the pods. So I've got a fairly flat hook on the end of my wire. Once I've done that, I need some paste. Now today I'm going to use a mixture of 50-50 piece of cake white paste, piece of cake from Tame, and some Smart Flex. So I've got 50-50, a mixture. Because I'm doing white flowers, I like piece of cake and Smart Flex mixed. Piece of cake gives it the malleability and Smart Flex gives it the whiteness. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little ball of paste. Now this is about number 5, about a number 5. So it just goes through a number 5, or it sits in a number 4. Okay, so this just goes through number 5 or number 4. So all I'm going to do with this is to push it with a small amount of glue. You could use water for this, it doesn't matter, just to moisten the end. And you don't want any residue left on the end of this, otherwise it'll just make a mess. So push it on and then twist it, squeeze it and twist it. And that's it. That's all you need to do. Simple as that. Absolutely simple. So that's all you need to do. And then you've got a little bud on the end of your wire. So as you can see, that's not very big. It's probably about 15 millimeters long. Okay. It needs to be as long as that. So whatever size you're going to use for your sweet pea, the sweet pea is here. This is your cutter. So that from there to there needs to be the size of this rose petal cutter here, so that you have the inside of your rose petal there. Now I don't know if you can see that, because that's it there. Okay, so it needs to be the size from the base to this, where this little piece splits open here. So if you have a smaller cutter, I've got a smaller cutter here. So if I have a smaller cutter, that one's too big for it, because it goes way over the top, and these little petals here will be too small for that cutter there to make the centerpiece. So this one would be too big to go in there by the time it's got the pasty around it. So if I showed you one of the pasties that this makes, it would be too big to go inside those petals, if you see what I mean. Whereas the petals that go on this one will fit it. It will go in between there, and then the petals will come up the back of this centerpiece. So you need to make a smaller one. If you have a smaller cutter, you need to cut a smaller one than this. So you have to find a smaller rose cutter than this one, or just cut this one down. So when you cut it, make it smaller. So you need to make a smaller pasty, a smaller one of these. You'd make a smaller one like this. Okay, so that would make a smaller one. So you probably only make that one 10 millimeters. Okay, so make the beginnings of your flower the size that you need for your finished sweet pea. Once you've got a number of these made, let them dry. You can do them damp, but they're better if they're dry. And when you've got quite a few, you can then start to make your first layer of petals. So now you just take your paste. You don't need very much to start with, and you roll it out. Now you're going to make your little pasty pieces that go over these little buds. So you've got a little piece of this, a little bit of corn flour, literally a tiny amount of corn flour, just enough to stop it sticking. Oops. And then you cut your little pasties. So you want a little tiny, I'll cut two in case one goes wrong. And I'll put this other one to keep moist over there. Now these, I'm going to use my veining tool for this. Oh, I've been busy doing this. I've had lots of people join. Oh, hi Melissa and Shani. Oh, Angela, hi there. And Sue, my goodness me. Can't believe there's so many people joining me to watch me execute a flower. But it's lovely to see you all, because this is my first attempt at this. So it's nice to see that I can actually do it. I was terrified of the technology, though I shouldn't be, really. It's not something that's completely new to me, but I wasn't having much luck with this YouTube stuff. So I've gone right the way around this petal, and I've made like a fan texture around the outside of it so that it's a little bit crinkly, and I've turned it over. I'm going to take a little bit of water, or I've got some Tylo glue in my pot, and as you can see, I'll put a little bit of it on here. I make Tylo glue so that it's a little bit runny, but not too thin that it goes everywhere. Can you see it's a bit blobby and a bit stringy? So I make my Tylo glue so that it's a little bit gloopy. Some people make it thicker than that. They like to have it really thick. Oh, hi, Julie. Yes, I am. I'm very well. Julie's just asked if I'm well. Yeah, I'm very well, thank goodness. And now I'm just going to glue the outside of this. And then I'm going to take one of my little pieces of bud, and I'm going to put it in the center. And I'm going to put it in the center slightly to one side, because then I will fold over, and I'm going to squeeze at this back edge very gently, just to squeeze it around until they come together. But I don't actually want to squash the whole thing. Can you see it's just touching? And I don't want to lose my veins that I've made in this. So I don't know if you can, yeah, you can just see the little veins in that now. So I don't want to lose the veins, but I do want to squeeze that edge together with the tiniest edge of my finger and thumb. Then I'm going to twist it. So I'm going to just gently twist it. And it doesn't matter if there's a little piece of it that doesn't quite join up. If you get your brush and just give it a little gentle brush, touch it again and retwist it, it gives you a lovely edge in there, so that later on when you dust it with the colors, that edge will be nice and sharp, and you can dust across it to give you the color, the dark color that comes a bit later on. Sorry, it doesn't focus when I put a brush underneath it. Right, I'm too close now. Right, I've messed up my focus now, so I'll do something else now. So that's your pasty on your stick. That is your first little bit, that, as I say, that's your pasty. So the next thing you need to do is to roll out and cut your first petal. These I generally dry overnight. You don't have to. If you're happy working with them damp, you can work with them damp. But at this stage, if I make a whole load of these, who's Melissa? I'm using half piece of cake and half Renshaw. Melissa, I used to use Renshaws a long time back. Yeah, I used to use half piece of cake and half Renshaws too. It was quite good. I'm quite happy with that. Renshaws does tend to dry very quickly, but with it half a piece of cake in it as well, it's fine. It does work quite well, so that's fine. Now, I hope Bernard's not attacking the camera, Shani. I really do hope he's not biting things. Shani says Bernard's looking at the camera because Bernard's a little dog. He can hear me. He can hear my voice. Now, at this stage, I would dust. I'd do a whole load of these little pasties and then dust. If you look at this one, when I do them white, I dust them at this stage, because each of the 3 stages I dust at. So I've got here a little tray, little egg tray, and in it I've got Vine from Squires, Cornish cream and African Violet from Sugar Flare. At this stage, I would dust. And I've got a brush for each of the colours. So as I'm doing a light purpley coloured flower, this kind of colouring, and where's the other one? This kind of colour. So I can dust darker or I can dust lighter, depending on how much dust I put on. These are all the same colours, but just put on in different densities. So if I wanted to go and dust this one, I would start with a little bit of green, and I would use a piece of, oh, I've just used that to mop the glue up. Hang on, I need another piece of kitchen paper. There we go. I use a piece of kitchen paper to take off a lot of my colour, and then I'll dust the green just at the base and up the back. You need very little. Then, using my Cornish cream, do I dust damp? Shani asks, do I dust damp? I don't usually dust damp, because if it's damp, then the flower doesn't always hold its shape. I find it easier to dust dry because these don't need a great deal of dust. But if I'm dusting a rose or another big flower, then I might dust damp and leave the petals to take the colour before I put them onto the actual rose itself, if I'm leaving them to get a shape and I'm leaving them to go leathery. But with these, I don't mind whether they're damp or dry. But sometimes it does take better if it's damp. This is the Cornish cream. Now I'm brushing across, and I'm only brushing the Cornish cream onto the lumpy bit then of this pod. So I'm only brushing the Cornish cream onto that lumpy bit there. And that's the same when I do all the inside of the petals. So when I do, say, this one's got the petal on it, I would only do that piece in there with the Cornish cream, because it just lifts that center and gives a glow in the center. So I would only do that little center piece. So this one's got the Cornish cream and the green on it now. Now the last little bit is this lovely purple. Now the purple needs to be fairly well loaded and then wiped off, so you don't get the dust. Now you can dust up this way so it doesn't drop onto the rest of your flower, but I'm dusting across that way from side. I'm pulling it towards me, and I'm not touching the rest of the flower going that way, just to pick up this edge. Oh, that's not very good, is it? You can't see that very well. Hang on. Can I move that out of the way, and then perhaps you can see better? You see that better against the white? Yeah, you might see it better against the white. So if I move that there, that's possibly better. How's that? Now that's going to deposit some on my flower itself, because I'm dusting it upside down to show you. But normally I would dust it that way up so that the dust falls away from it. You can also bring some here along this tip. This is the edge there. So you've now got some nice colouring on the edge of this. So you can see the green, you can see the cream, and you can see that dark along the back, which will show up when you put your petals on eventually. So that's how I dust those. So I dust all of those the same at this stage. So I'd have several ready-made. So that's the first petal stage. Then with the second petal stage, I'd make, now I'm going to use this because I've had this keeping under a plastic sheet, so it's kept quite moist and quite pliable. If you find that yours is not quite so pliable, warm it in your hands like this, between the palms of your hands, so that it gets warm again, and you'll be surprised it's quite pliable again then. So I'm just going to cut one of these. So this is just the centre petals. I'll put that back over there. Give it a rub on my hand, and as you can see, it pulls out quite nicely. Now on this one, we need to do the same again, but I'm going to push into it like this and fan out these petals. There we go. And each time they stick to the board, you peel it up and you go round again. So I'm going to lift that back now. And this one goes here. When I'm not doing this on video, I raise it up. If I did this and I put a board on there, I put a green board on top of it so you can see it. So I get it to the edge of my board and I do it over the edge of the board. And that does make it easier than trying to do it in the middle of your board. So if you can do it, bring it to the edge of your board, it does make it a lot easier. So this one's quite frilly now. You could put this onto your blue board and put a balling tool around the edge to frill the edge if you want to. But I don't really find that this does an awful lot of good because you've already done the frilling with the veining tool. Now I'm going to put a little bit of glue in the center. Now I only glue this center piece. Those two pieces stay open and the glue just goes into that little piece just here. When you've done that, you take your coloured pasty and you put it into the center of here, making sure that this little piece at the base comes around like that, and attaching it to the back of the pasty, the flower there, the bud inside. And you can allow these to drop back now, so you can take your tool and just curl them back. They can flop any way you want because they're pretty random kind of flowers. You can dry them this way by pushing them into a block, or you can stand them up and dry them upright, depending on how you want them to actually stand. If you want them to curl forward like this, then dry them forward. If you want them to curl backwards, then dry them backwards, dry them upright, and they'll flop back. So let them, when you dry them, let them sort of have a variety of different poses where they will, well, they'll dry in different different ways, different poses. So once you've got that one dried and it's set in a particular pose, you can then dust it. And again, you would do what we've just done. You put your little bit of Cornish cream just in here, and then you dust the edges very carefully with your purple. So here's one I've done like that one. I've put the Cornish cream into that one and then just dusted the edges with the purple. Finally, all you need to do now is to do your last petals, which is your large petal. Okay, so here we go again. You take your large petal cutter this time and cut a large petal. And this time you do exactly the same again. And making like a fan. Shani says, get my grilling stick flatter. Yes, I do need to get my frilling stick flatter. That's why I've raised my board up, so I can get my frilling stick flatter. It does help. It's no good having your frilling stick. Trying to do it down here on the board, you just can't get it flat enough. So by raising it up like this, I get to be able to put my fingers underneath it and get it flatter like that, which is a lot easier. So I've now got my little frills, and I can actually put it on there and give it a little frill around there on this one. And again, with this, all I need to do is to glue the centerpiece Yes, Julie. Julie's asking if she'll be able to watch this tutorial later for reference, because she wants to have a go later. Yes, you'll definitely be able to watch it later. I'm assured that I can actually set it so that it will be, it'll be able to be accessible later, providing I can do the technology bit. Yes, I'm assured it is watchable later. Now I'm going to use this one. Shani says Vayner, not a grilling stick. Yes, it wasn't a grilling stick. No, it was predictive text, wasn't it, Shani? Yeah. Love predictive text. I love grilling sticks. Frilling sticks, yes. Now, yeah, if I can get my head around all the techie bits. I mean, it's not difficult. They keep saying it's not. It's ever so easy, Lou. Ever so easy. It is when you can find the button. The button's disappeared because the live chat bit's come up and it's popped up and you can't find the go live button because it's behind the live chat. Takes ages. Oh, yeah. Why is the button behind the live chat bit? How'd you get to it? Just by luck, I pressed tab and it went behind and it actually popped back up. But now this, you can see, is difficult because it flops everywhere. So this you have to dry sticking out to the side of a block of Oasis. So you dry it for a little while one way. So I'll dry it that way for a start, which is quite nice. And then I'll probably turn it and dry it another way once that's taken a little bit of drying. And then I'll turn it to just get it where I want it. Because if I dried it upright, it would be fine for some of them. Some of them will actually be like that. They'll flop like this. And they, Shani will be on that in a minute. You're out to screenshot. You're out to shot. You're out to shot, Lou. Shani's my minder. She's helped me no end. So there we go. That's back in shot now. There we go. Am I in shot, Johnny? Yeah, I think I might be. There you go. So some of them you just turn back like that, and others they will curl and just go all over the place. So once you've got quite a range of them, and they're all dusted and coloured the way you want them, then you can put them together in a lovely bunch. But what I want to show you before we finish is another thing. You can do plain colours. Plain colours look beautiful, but you do need to add some green. And if I was using this one, the difficulty with this is it's so flat. I've done this in cerise, but I wouldn't leave this as cerise. I couldn't leave this as a cerise colour because it would be so boring. So I would give it some green, even though it looks funny at the moment. When it's dipped, a little bit of green and other colours as well. If I could put some darker colour on it, if I'm doing the purples, I'd experiment with putting a little bit of dark purple on it. And it will bring up the colour beautifully on the edges. But again, I just dust the edges, and that will give it will tie your colours into your others beautifully. Can you see that? It's just, you perhaps can't see it, but when it's dipped into some colour, it will come up beautifully. There you go. And I'm brushing across the veins at this stage because this is going to give an extra depth of colour to this cerise. So by using a flat colour, you then can bring up the other colour in it by the time it's dipped. Now, I don't know if you can see that on this. It looks a bit like a butterfly at the moment. But don't be afraid to coat a different colour over these edges. And it will come up beautifully. So that's just a quick one about doing a different colour. Now, the next thing I want to do is to show you the buds that are just opening, where I have these little chaps. I'll show you this little chap here, that little chap there. So making these ones that are just coming out. Okay, so these are your seed pods that are just opening out. So to make one of those, you need your paster, and you need now a larger rose petal cutter. Quite a simple rose petal cutter. You need another one of your 24 gauge wires with a hook on. And you just roll out. This is so simple. You just roll out and you cut two of your larger rose petal cutters. So cut two largish ones. Thank you, Sue Webb. That's very kind of you. Sue says they're nice. Lovely flowers. Okay, so now this isn't terribly thin paste. You can't see through it. It's not particularly delicate, so it doesn't have to be really desperately thin. Now I'm going to put this back on here. And so with my wire, a little bit of glue on my wire, and I've made a largish pod. Now this pod's going to be slightly different because I'm going to pinch this one out like that. You can do this for all of them. You don't have to put the the wraps around it like I did before, but they don't look so good. This one is now like a little pasty shaped pod, and I'm going to shape these larger petals just like before. Thinning them considerably. Now, as I said once before, you can actually do all this with a ball tool and thinning things on the pad, but this is an easy way to do it. It's a quick way. So I've just done it a quick way today. But if you want to use veiners and do a more refined flower, then I'll show you another way with veiners and things another day. Okay, so I've now got 2 petals like this, and I'm going to put one on top of the other. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue just to hold it, but only in the middle, not round to the edges. So all I've got is that. I've just put one on top of the other. Now I've got to put a bit of glue in the middle. But not right the way out to the edges. I'm going to put my pasty right in the middle there, but slightly to the one side, so that I'm going to have a thick centre. Then I'm going to squeeze it so that the pasty gets a nice little bump in the middle there. Then this comes around, so I get that. So you can see the layers of the petals opening up. And then I'm going to get my little brush handle or a pointer tool. I use a pointer tool today to just get in there and pull that back so that you get this lovely curve. And then you can see these layers of petals just opening up. Let me see if I can you see the petal layers? There you go. That's a bit better, isn't it? You can just see the layers of petals. Not terribly good, but I think you get the general gist of it. So that's your little bud, opening bud. Eventually, what will happen is that will be upside down. That'll be an upside down one. And then you'll go, it'll come out and it'll go, you'll bend it round, and then you'll bend back, and it'll hold itself sort of upside down like that. But they go upside down. Oops. And keep this end fairly straight. And they come out upside down. But you'll have to put the calyxes on first. So I'm going to cut some calyxes now. I'll put that one in there to dry, and then we'll cut some calyxes. The little tiny calyxes are so simple. Sue said to me, "Can we heckle?" I go, yeah, usually she does. I'm used to my friends heckling. So I need now a little bit of green. I've got some green here. This green's a mixture of piece of cake and spring green, and again a piece of cake, mid green. So I use mid green quite a lot for all my roses and things, but this is spring green and mid green 50-50. So here we go. I'm just going to cut some tiny little. Now this is quite thin. There we go. This is quite thin. And I'm going to use a little bit of corn flour just to stop it sticking. But I don't want tons. But that's just enough. Now these are so simple. All it is a tiny little calyx cutter, very small. There we go. And that's as much as we need. So here we have. You can do this through the using a Mexican hat if you want to be a bit more professional about it. But for very simple ones like this, I'm just going to put my ball tool around the edges. And then I'm going to curl them back a little bit. Okay. Then I will turn it over. Now, all I've got to do is, I'm going to take my finished flower, and I've got my green up to here, so I'm just going to put a little tiny bit of glue just in here. But you really don't need a lot, because if you put too much, it just oozes out everywhere, because in a minute you're going to squash this around the stem. As I say, for those of you that can do a Mexican hat, they're quite good. But if not, then you just ease it up, squeeze it around the stem, and just make it. Yep. And tuck the petals in. And as you squeeze it round, it just comes down the stem to finish that little bit there. I generally tuck it in here, just in this little piece just here, to cover the base of the stem. And that's all you need to do to make the little calyx that goes on the back of it. When you get your tape, the florist's tape, which you cut to quarter width, stretch it, and then I work up, twist it, and I work up to the base of that calyx, and then I move down afterwards, because I find that's a lot easier than trying to start from the top. Then you've got your stem finished. So that's one done. Now the next one is the pod. So this pod, we need to do another one. So we need to do another little calyx. Another thing you can use is a star. If you haven't got a calyx, use a little star cutter. They're equally as good. So if you use a little star cutter, pop that out. There's your star. It's equally as good. You can just thin those a little bit. The small ball tool. Julie, the cutters are usually from Fine Cut, or where do I usually get my cutters from? This one I think is part of another set. I think no, this one comes, I think, with the sweet pea set. I think it comes as the sweet pea calyx. I can check on that. Have a look at the Sugarcraft products, 650 sweet pea. Because the Sugarcraft products, 650 sweet pea, might have the calyx cutter in with it. But I'd have to check that, because I think I've had mine rather a long time. So, oh, Shani says Tinker Tech. Yes, probably Tinker Tech. Yeah, Wouldn't mind betting it's Tinker Tech as well. I got a lot of Tinker Tech stuff. So you could be right there, Shani. I've lost my brush now. Oh, that'll give you all a shake up, won't it? I clouted the camera with a paintbrush. Okay, so there we go. Now I've got my little pod. So I'm going to put the pod there, push that through and push it up. There we go. So that's just up there. That's it. Shani says hers are from Tinker Tech. Now I'm going to put a little tiny bit of paste on the stem. This is another way of doing it. You can put your paste on the stem. Now this is quite sticky paste. It doesn't need glue on the wire. You can just take that up to there if you want to. I don't always do this with it, but it's another way you can do it, and then just run it down the stem a little while until you get down a little way, and then you can actually just tape in from there. So that's your little bud there. So that one hasn't been dipped yet, but it's got the cream and the green and the darker purple colour. So that's that one. Now the next thing I can show you is what to do to make the little curly whirly bits. Now the curly whirly bits go where the leaves are. So if you get a wire, I should say a 26 gauge wire, I'll use a 26 and I'll just cut a little piece, 1/3 of a wire, depending on how long you want to make it, mind. So I'm going to straight, and I'm going to go down my wire. I'm going to go right up, 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 up. When I get to the top, I'm going to twist, and I'm going to hold it tight in my left hand and just keep twisting. Just keep twisting and easing it through. And can you see it's just making a twist on my wire? Then I'll snap it off. Now you've got a wire with a piece of squiggly tape on it. I've got a nice fat pointer tool, or you can use the handle of a paintbrush. So there's my wire. There's the top of my wire. So where it meets the top of my wire, I'm going to twist it around my tool like that, tight. Then I'm going to push it off, and I've got the little curly whirly bits for the end of my leaves to go on where my leaves go. So that's how I make those. You can make lots of those or just a few. The next thing I make is leaves. Now leaves are dead easy to make. I'll do the twiddle and splat method because it's nice and quick for today. But you can make them on a board or anything else. I'm not going to use anything spectacular. I'm going to use the green that I've just used for the calyxes. And I'm going to use the rose cutter, the little rose cutter that I used to make the pods. So I'm going to cut 2 of these. Like that. So I've just got those. Now, The ultimate in simplicity for this is to just mark them yourself with a palette knife. So you could just round them with a ball tool. There you go. So you can just thin them a little. Give them a little bit of corn flour. I tend to thin with my fingers quite a bit. It's a Robert Haynes skill, because I like to feel the paste. So you can make the leaves larger or smaller, however you feel like, really. Now, if you've got a veiner for a leaf, fair enough. If you haven't, then just use your tools that you've got there to just mark some leafy looking lines on it. It doesn't really matter at this stage, because these aren't really going to be the focal point of your sweet pea arrangement. So if you just wanted to make some little leaves that would illustrate a point, then this is the simplest of all the things to do. And then you take a tiny little piece of your green paste and a little piece of your wire. So you can take maybe 2 pieces of your wire that you've got left over, pop it on the end. Okay. And then give it a little squash. You add a little bit of glue to this. This really is the ultimate in lazy leaf making, but if you want to make something ultra simple, that is as easy as it comes. Okay, now I'm going to squeeze that there. If at this stage you want to vein it properly, you can. So I'm going to just put this one on as well. As I say, this glue is really quite, not glue, this paste is really quite soft. Doesn't need a huge amount of there you go. And then I push it in there. Okay, that's that. If you have a leaf veiner, any kind of leaf veiner is fine. A rose leaf veiner or any size veiner is quite good. If you want to just pop a few veins on it, you can pop it into a leaf veiner. Just give it a few veins. There you go. You've just got a little bit of something on there then to make a leaf. Okay. Once you've done that, give it a little crease and they'll be fine. I like to crease mine at the top as well, so that they have a little tiny piece at the top. The other thing you can do with the top of a leaf is to get a Dresden tool and just do that and give it a little pull towards you. Then it gives you the little tiny tips at the top. So we've now got 2 leaves, a spiral, one of those, one of these, and another one drying, but he's not quite dry yet. As you can see, he's fallen backwards, but he won't be far off. And then we've got some little coloured ones, which we could add in afterwards. So we've got a few little bits and pieces now. All we need to do is to add our leaves to this. So the spiral will come up from in between the leaves. So all I'm going to do is to take the leaves, bend them slightly back, and put one either side of the spiral. Now, ideally, I'd wait for my leaves to dry and not do this. So I'd really wait for them to dry. But that's where I would put them. So the leaves would go either side here once they're dry. Okay, so that would be my leaves. I'll put those there. And then my flowers I put with the back over my stainless steel tool, pointer tool, or a paintbrush or something like that. And I hold it at the top and I push backwards on the stem, and then I'm going to bend the stem like this so that you get that lovely curve. And that makes your nice curve in the flowers. And the same for this chap. Once I've put the tape down the stem, tape the stem. There we go. I put that, bend it over, and then you get that curve. And then your flowers all curl about, and you can bend them sideways and give them lots of curls, and some of them will come up, some of them will come out of this lovely piece. Oops, can't put those in yet because they're not dry. But they will come out of this beautiful stem where the leaves come out eventually. And that one will be a tall one. So these are always the tallest ones. I like him, he's going to be tall. So I'm going to put this one in the top. I think I'll just have him nice and tall. Okay. Now I'm not worrying about the taping at this stage. As you can see, it's just loosely on there because there'll be several other pieces of tape that will go on top of that next. Now this one, start it down there. It's a lot easier to start down and work up. We're going down now. And then I'll curve this one. They won't all need to be completely curled. Some of them will need to be bent over. And by gradually building it up, putting the flowers where you want them, and then taping them in to where you have a couple of leaves, and then making lots of little sprays like this together. Then these two little leaves will go just here. like so. And although these leaves aren't dry yet, when they are, that will form one little piece of this spray, and then you'll make lots of other colours and put them all together in these little bunches, so you get lots of colours and sprays. And that is virtually all you have to do to make sweet peas. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's just a very quick little flower to make, and hopefully that's just an insight into how to make a very basic sweet pea. There we go. I'll make that available if I can afterwards for people. And thank you for joining me. I've enjoyed my first YouTube video. Bye bye.